again. Welcome back to Teal Town USA. I'm Erik Kuhre, and today, pleased to be joined once again. It's our annual chat with Sharks broadcaster Randy Hahn. Randy, good to see you. How was your summer?
Summer was good. It seemed really long, but we played into almost May because of the scheduling and stuff like that. So I guess it wasn't really that long, but it's good to be back.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations, by the way, on becoming an American citizen as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll kind of going to have a little bit of a travel thing going on here. Yeah, this edition. Got to ask, personally, how was Europe? How are you jet lag wise? I did a trip, earlier in the summer, and it got me a little bit.
It actually got me on the way home, and usually it doesn't. But for the first 3 days this week, I was going to bed at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. I should have thought of it and had the senior special at Denny's, but and then waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So, but I'm getting back onto the normal clock now, so pretty much back to normal. But it was a different trip for me because I got married a year ago, so our honeymoon got postponed due to the pandemic, and our plan was to go to Paris. So I figured, here's the chance. So we went. My wife and I went to Paris a week ahead of the team going to Berlin, and we spent 4 or 5 days there, and then went up to Normandy and did all the World War II history up there, and just kind of fell in love with that area. Really enjoyed our time there, and then flew to Berlin, met up with the team a week ago or so on the Sunday when the Sharks flew in, and then jumped right into work mode. So it was half pleasure, and then the other half was pushing on and doing the Eisbären game, and then doing the 2 games against Nashville. But definitely immersed back into the season now.
Oh my goodness, what a trip. And congrats again, by the way. I remember seeing the pictures when everything came out. So glad you had a great time in Paris. Germany, I've been wanting to go back to Germany for a long time, so I'm a little jealous. But getting to the Czech Republic, the games at hand, is there any little difference calling a game overseas versus like a typical road game for you and Hetty?
Yeah, there were a lot of differences. The number one difference was that we were the international English feed. So we were responsible for calling a 50-50 kind of telecast, equal amounts Eisbären when we did the game in Germany, and also when we did the games in Prague, to try and play to both a Nashville audience and a San Jose audience, even though the Predators had their own announcers there. So we weren't seen in the Nashville market, but around the country on the NHL network, and any other country that wanted to take the feed in English, our feed was the international feed. So your responsibility is to do a more balanced show, much different than what we'll do on the Sharks home games, which is a Shark-centric show.
Right.
We had to focus on both teams, and that was especially tough in Germany because when I saw Eisbären play, that was the first time I'd ever seen Eisbären. They did not have a practice ahead of their game against the Sharks. There was no morning skate, things like that. So it was just like, baptism by fire. There was a couple of guys on the team that were, former NHLers, but then it turned out most of those didn't play because they were hurt. Zach Boychuk was an exception. He was a former first-round draft pick. So it was studying quickly to try and learn the German team, the Berlin team, and then try and do a balanced show. And that's tough because you just don't have a data bank of knowledge about Eisbären Berlin, and you got to try and do the best you can. So that was challenging. Not so much after that because, of course, we know the Predators well, and by good luck for me, I did a Predators playoff game on TNT last spring. So one of the most recent games I had done was a Predators game against Colorado in that series where they got swept. So I was still pretty familiar with, their lineup and what changes they made. So that was the biggest difference. And then just the broadcast setup in those countries, it's different than what we're used to at home. It's not as dedicated an area like your own press box or broadcast booth. It varies from building to building. And in Prague, we were kind of just set up in the stands with tables.
Oh,
But
wow.
but that turned out to be good, because where they put us, if that's where I was for an NHL game over here, it would be the best location in the league. We were that down low in the bottom section, but still high enough up to get the perspective of the game. So it was great. I mean, you could hear the guys yelling at each other and really see the game well. So that was the positive out of Prague. And, they ended up being good games too. So it wasn't that hard to be 50-50 on the telecast. Nashville's obviously a good team. Some people think they could be a cup contender this year. I happen to agree with that. And so there was plenty to talk about for both teams.
Yeah, definitely a fun time out there, and yeah, nice broadcast spot. I mean, I've always liked the one that you've had in the Shark Tank, right in the middle, like the front row in front of everybody. So that's always nice to have for sure.
Yeah, and that's where we're pretty much back now. We're just over a little bit, but now last year they moved us back down, and I haven't been to the booth yet, but I'm told we're in the same spot. So hopefully
Gotcha.
they'll move us back up into the stratosphere.
That's what it seems like up there for sure.
Yeah, it is actually. With the new jumbotron, might be just better off watching the game on there when you're way up there. You get a better view.
That thing is massive. I went and did a quick tour, and unreal. I mean, that you'd be like, hey, if we don't need to go on the road, we'll just call the game off of there. So
Yeah,
that's for sure. Speaking of the road, you weren't able to go to every road city last season. I think you said like in February it started. You were able to get out on the road. Which city are you looking forward to? It's going to be like a couple of years since there. Anyone in particular?
well, I always look forward to going to the Canadian cities, and especially Montreal. So that's always one I look forward to. And it's on the front end of a back-to-back, I think, near the end of November. So I'll get a day in Montreal, but then I think we play the next night in Toronto. So I'll miss the Toronto part of it because it's just too busy to do anything but do the actual game. But then again, that's one of the best parts of going to those cities, because it's Toronto and Montreal. I mean, this is the apex of hockey in Canada. So looking forward to that. Always look forward to going to Nashville, but because we played a road game in Prague against Nashville, and this is the season where we were only going to Nashville once, that was the game. So we don't get to go to Nashville this season. So that's too bad. But there's other great ones. I love going to Minnesota. That the XL Energy Center is fantastic, and they've got an exciting team and a superstar with Kaprizov. So that's always fun. And in my opinion, right now, the model franchise in the NHL is Tampa, and I really enjoy going there. They just know what they're doing off the ice. The fan experience is incredible. The in-arena presentation is top notch, and then of course they have the team as well to back it up. So that's also a favorite place to go. And you're in Florida.
Of course, lay out by the beach and enjoy it for sure. So getting into the broadcast for the season, obviously, a little different because, like you said, you were calling an international feed along with the NBC feed. Anything we should expect differently on the broadcast this season?
Yeah, there's going to be a few changes. Number one, Brett Hedican and Drew Remenda will now be sharing the broadcast duties 50-50. So Drew will be doing half the games on TV and the other half on the Sharks Audio Network with Dan Ruzanowski. And on the nights that Drew's on TV, Brett will be on the audio network and vice versa. So they're going to split it right down the middle. So I'll be kind of bouncing back and forth between the two partners. We did a bit of that last year, but there'll be more of it this year. And I think that's good for the viewer. They get a different perspective. There'll be some games where all three of us are on TV. And then I think Scott Hannon is going to do audio network with Dan, and Mark Smith occasionally. Great to see the Sharks alumni getting involved in a bigger role with our broadcasts. And another big change, you'll see it on opening night, is the Sharks built out a new bar in that area when you first enter SAP Center. Yeah. I call it the ice bar. It kind of looks like
right.
Blocks of ice there, but a beautiful view of San Jose. and that's become a bar now. And NBC Sports California has now set up a studio there on a night by night basis. So every pregame, postgame won't be there, but on opening night, Brody Brazil and Curtis Brown will be up there in that area. And I can't wait to see what it looks like. It's going to be great for them. They're going to be right in there with the fans and get a real good feel, on the telecast of being in the building. And then they'll have the view of San Jose and the lights behind them. So that'll be a nice perspective as well. And there's probably some other things that they're going to throw our way that I don't know about yet, but those are the big changes. The 50-50 with Drew and Brett, and then the pre and post coming inside the building from time to time. As I say, not every game, but every home game, but quite a few of them. And another change that this is kind of a technical thing, but in the past, we have always traveled on the road with a producer. Our producer is Sean Madison, our director, Paul Davis, and our graphics coordinator, the legendary Darren Stevens, who's an encyclopedia of Sharks hockey. And because of the new way that NBC and many of the RSNs, the regional sports networks, are now televising games, all those people will no longer travel. So they will be in a studio setting, typically in San Francisco. And whereas before I would be talking to the producer or director or even Darren, they'd be in the truck, say in Buffalo downstairs. I'm going to be talking to them now, but they're going to be in the Bay Area, and it's all going to be remotely done. It's cloud-based production. It's everybody's going to it. It's more efficient. I'm sure it's more cost-effective and things like that. So that's a big change for us internally. Hopefully, the viewer never notices that. Yeah, so that's something we did a bit of it last year, and this year all the road games will be done that way. They weren't done that way from Prague, but they will be done that way going forward.
That it's the wave of the future, and with the technology being so quickly to respond to anything that's thrown out, it's like you're right next to them. So I could totally see that happening.
It's crazy, you push a button and talk to him, and you could be in Boston and he's in the Bay Area, and 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, just go ahead. I'm just lounging. Yeah, go ahead, Randy. You talk.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, with the what do you think of the all teal look for the Sharks? Isn't it great?
I like the fact that they went with the pants too.
Yeah.
There was a part of me at the beginning went like, ooh, maybe they should have gone black pants. But the helmet's awesome, and I'm glad they're not super glossy like I don't know if you saw the Kings game the other night, but they had their new silver lids on, and Vegas didn't have their golden domes on. That would have been maybe too much. But no, I really like the look, and I love the white sweaters, the road sweater. It really pops. I think they did a really good job with both of them, but I'm looking forward to seeing that all teal look at home.
That's I mean, I'm a big component of everything teal, so I was just losing it when I saw it, and I was like, the numbers are legible. I'm like, yes, nothing crazy where we're breaking out the 90s again, where everything is like, was that Timo? Was that Hurdle? Yeah. I can't tell. Yeah. So
sadly, there's still some teams that don't get it, and they have some crazy fonts on their alternate jerseys. And I'll tell you, for us, depending on where we're sitting, sometimes it is a huge challenge to make out the difference between a stylized 8 or a 6 or a 5 even on the back of a sweater. And it's a game changer for us. You got to pay a lot more attention, and you are constantly checking what line combinations are on the ice, so that sometimes you're guessing as to who has the puck because you can't quite make out the number.
I'm curious, have they ever talked to you or Dan Ruzanowski in regards to it? Because I think legibility's got to be one of the things they got to check out.
The Sharks haven't, and I think there was one year when it was a problem, but it was just with a third jersey, and it didn't affect us that much. But it always astounds me that the league doesn't have a standard where look. You have to have a readable font. And they let teams get away with stuff that you would not believe how hard it is sometimes to see those names. And depending on where you are, like if for a home game where we sit, we're pretty close to the ice, but where Dan Rusanowski sits, as we were talking about before, up in the press box, it can be next to impossible. Fingers crossed we don't run into a lot of that, but not with these sweaters. They look great. And I guess we're going to have maybe an alternate sweater somewhere during the season. I saw some mock-ups that were leaked that were like seals looking things.
Yeah.
I have no inside info as to whether or not that's happening or
Darn
what
it.
it'll look like. That's above my pay grade, but hopefully we'll be able to tell who has the puck, because, back in the day before helmets became mandatory, guys you just look at their faces,
Yeah.
and you knew who had the puck. And then gradually, as they grandfathered in the mandatory helmets, and Doug Wilson was among the last to go helmetless, and Craig McTavish and players like that, all of a sudden it changed, and the numbers became very important, not just on the backs, but on the helmets as well, and on the shoulders.
Yeah, no, definitely it was a game changer. I mean, picture either, Jumbo or Burnsy without a helmet on, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's for sure. Before I let you go, I guess, well, actually two questions. One, any story you could share about Doug Wilson since he's being honored on Saturday night?
Well, Doug is he's done so much, not only for the Sharks, but for the community. I mean, you think about what the presence of the franchise has meant over these 30 years now. And Doug was kind of the orchestrator of the success for virtually 20 years of that 30-year stretch that the franchise has been in business. And it raised the level of awareness and helped create civic pride in San Jose. I mean, you've been around forever, and for all those years before the Sharks started having success, you cheered for the 49ers or the Warriors or the A's or the Giants. And I know the Earthquakes were around, but that was pre-MLS days, and they were in leagues, out of them, indoor, outdoor, but then not again. So they weren't quite the national presence that the NHL team became when the Sharks came into being. But and putting together a team that what do we have, a stretch where we made the playoffs 19 times out of 21 years. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it created such a buzz in the city. And then, I mean, the master stroke of putting together the trade for Joe Thornton. Let's be honest, we probably wouldn't be talking about all those times in the playoffs if they hadn't got Thornton. I mean, he was the driver behind all of it. And Patrick Marleau, great player, and Joe Pavelski, great player, and there were others, and Owen Nolan before Thornton and all that. But Jumbo's the one that stirred the drink, and first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest playmakers in the history of the NHL. And Doug made that happen, and then built a team around him that, sadly for Doug and for all of us, didn't get to the Stanley Cup as far as winning it. Made it to the final, but didn't get the ring. But and then there's all the things that happen behind the scenes. And, Doug's always been somebody that you could go to for help. And I've leaned on him in times of personal need, family need. And he's always been there and been a resource. And so glad that we're able to honor him on Saturday. And, I would expect that we'll see him back in the NHL again sooner than later, and he'll be trying to beat us.
which is tough to think about, but yeah, he's been a great guy. I've talked to him a couple of times on here. Great to chat with. So finally, who do you like on this team? I mean, I of course Hurdle and Meyer. I really like Luke Kunnen's drive in those two games. I mean, anybody that's kind of stuck out. I know, granted, it's a small sample size.
Yeah,
but,
I've liked like you. I've liked Luke Kunnen, and I've also liked Stephen Lawrence. This was the guy that came to us from Carolina in the Burns deal, and just like one of the nicest hockey players you will ever have the chance to talk to. If you do, he's just a great guy. But he's big, and I thought he looked good in that second game when Quinn moved him up to the second line to play with Couture and LeBanc. I'd love to see Kevin Labanc get that scoring touch back, and he's shooting the puck a lot. It's just it just hasn't gone in yet. And again, we're 2 games in, 80 to go. But Lawrence is a guy that sticks out for me as somebody that I'm excited about. Obviously, like all the fans, I want to see Bordeleau and Eklund as well. And I think they'll make their way to San Jose before long. But I think it's really a good move by Mike Grier to start them with the Barracuda and dominate in the AHL. You aren't first overall draft picks that can't miss NHLers. You've got some things to prove, and go prove it in that league and show that you can dominate there and put up points there and win a job, not be handed a job. And I think maybe last year too many of the rookies got handed chances and didn't maybe earn them the old-fashioned way with the Barracuda. Some of that was just a function of injury and whatnot, but I think this is a better way to develop players, and it might be a little painful, and we might have to wait. Might be Christmas time, might be after that. Who knows? Might not be till next year. And then again, when injuries happen, it could be next week. I mean, you just don't know. But I'm excited to see their development. And I think it's great too for the Barracuda in the new arena, and there'll be more profile on them now because they have those exciting young players, and they're not the only ones. Tristan Robbins, Brandon Coe, Ozzy Weisblad, it goes on and on there with that group. But Lawrence I'm excited about. And on the blue line, Benning has been a nice pickup. He's a solid player. Talking to Drew Amenda, who broadcast the Edmonton Oilers for a number of years, and Matt Benning was there. He's very high on Matt. Add some real grit, some sandpaper to the blue line, and I'd love to see Shimmick get his game back to where it was a couple of years ago. And I'm also uplifted in the first 2 games, at least, by the way Marc-Edouard Vlasic has played. He played 20 minutes the first night against Nashville, a little over 19 the second night, and looked more like the Pickles from 2-3 years ago. And that is going to be solid because let's face it, the Sharks are going to be goal challenged this year. There's no question about that. They were the lowest scoring team 5-on-5 in the league last year, and they lost Burns. So getting goals is going to be a chore, and it's going to have to be got by committee. And, fingers crossed the Timo and Hurdle and Couture can do their usual things, and that some of the other guys can play a little bit better offensively to provide that offense you're going to need. But clearly the goaltending is going to have to be good, and I think it will be with Reimer and Kakkonen, and the defensive play is going to have to be there. It's, the Sharks are going to have to win 3-2, 2-1 games. That's just the fact of it. They're not going to be lighting it up every night like maybe they did when Thornton and Marlowe and Pavelski and all the rest were in their heyday. So it's going to be a different look. But I just like the direction Mike Grier's taking with rebuilding this team. I'm a big David Quinn fan. He's just he's a terrific person as well, and I think above anything, Mike Grier put a premium on adding quality people to the organization. And I don't have to name names, but I think we got away from that with at least in particular one individual who did a lot of harm to our chemistry, if you will. And that player's not with us anymore, but I think we need to get back to the foundation of bringing good people in as well. And that's how you build good teams, and that's how you build success.
Yeah, I look forward to it. The future looks bright. And of course, it's a new season. Anything can happen. We've seen it from this franchise before. So with that, as always, thank you for taking the time for joining me, Randy. Appreciate you so much. Look forward to seeing you at the tank all season long. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Erik. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.